All right. Good morning, everyone. So I've started recording. So let's do a quick recap of what we discussed yesterday. The two important definitions for today are the local connectivity function between two vertices, right? It's defined as the maximum number of pairwise internally disjoint paths between those two vertices in the graph, right? And then you have a minimum size of an xy vertex cut, and that is the local vertex cut function. Okay. Now, well, when we want to talk about different graphs, it will help to know which graph we are talking about, right? So we might also, to specify the graph, we might also say PG of xy and CGXY. Okay, just to indicate clearly that the graph we are referring to is the graph G. Because when we prove Menger's theorem today, we might have to look at different graphs and it might help to specify which graph we are talking about. Okay, so one of the questions I'd asked you at the end of yesterday's lecture is there an easy relationship between these two quantities? If you take a graph G and you take two vertices that are distinct and non-adjacent, then what can you say about these two quantities? I want some easy result, easy relationship between these two. Let's make a drawing. Supposing this is x, supposing this is y, and let's say pxy is equal to 5. Okay, let's maybe let me make it 4. It's easier. Supposing there are maximum number of internally disjoint paths between these two is equal to 4. Then what can you say about this quantity? Anyone?
It will be
Yeah.
4.
It has to be, are you saying
At
it is
least
exactly 4 or is it at least or at most 4?
it can be okay.
You're on the right track. I just want to know the
Yeah,
bound
yeah.
here.
At least four.
That's
At least 4. Do you agree, Shefali?
um,
You want to
it's
destroy, yeah,
actually a minimum number of vertices, right?
right.
So it can be like equals to 4 because
It
at
can be,
least,
but can you
yeah.
prove it is equal to 4?
No.
No. Okay, good. So that's what I'm asking. I'm asking for something that is easy to see, right? What is easy to see is that it is at least 4. Do you agree? You must remove at least one vertex from all of these paths in order to destroy these paths. Okay? Of course, that does not mean that you have destroyed all paths between x and y, because you could have a strange path that does something like this and comes here. Okay? It's not clear why removing 4 vertices from these paths will destroy all the paths between x and y. But what is clear is that you must destroy at least one vertex from each path, otherwise that path will survive. Everybody with me? So it has to be at least as many.
Can you just repeat from the beginning? Actually, I got disconnected from the CXY part.
Sure. But do you see this already? Do you see why this is true?
CXY less than or equal. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then you have not missed anything, right? So I'm just explaining why this easy bound holds.
Okay, okay, okay.
Okay,
So basically, you just explain why PXY less than or equal to CXY holds.
exactly, exactly. Okay, so this holds for all x and y that are distinct and non-adjacent. Okay, good. So that is an easy observation. Okay, good. And what is really interesting, fascinating, I would say, is that these two quantities are actually equal. That's not clear. Why should it be equal? And that is Menger's theorem. This is from 19, yeah.
Theorem basically says that first of all there exists pxy pairwise disjoint paths, and from these pairwise disjoint paths there is a way to pick. There is some choice to pick each vertex from each path, such that
That's right.
resulting set becomes an xy vertex cut.
That's right. That is one way to view it. We are going to look at a different way to view it. We are going to take a minimum XY cut and we are going to show that there are at least as many paths between the two vertices. So what we will show is that the number of XY paths is at least as many as the number of vertices in a minimum cut. Okay? So Menger's theorem actually says that they are equal. Right? We will be proving the greater than equal to. So here G is a graph. Sorry, someone's mic is on. Please turn it off. X and Y are vertices of your graph. X not equal to Y and X not adjacent with Y. Okay? So that's Menger's theorem. I believe it is 9.1 in the textbook, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so today our goal is to prove this theorem. So we have some graph G, X and Y, and we want to show, supposing let the size of a minimum cut be equal to K. Okay, just for the sake of convenience, let's call this number K. Okay, and our goal is to show existence of K internally pairwise internally disjoint paths. Okay, and what this implies is that the number of paths between X and Y is at least K, which is this quantity. Okay, and that will imply that the two quantities are actually equal. Is everybody with me? Are there any questions or concerns regarding what we are trying to prove? Okay, so some of you would have seen a proof of this result. In most cases, the proof you see in many courses is a proof using max flow min cut theorem or some flow cut related stuff, right? We are going to do it using just graph theory. We are not going to use flows or anything. We are going to see a completely graph theoretical proof of the result. Okay, and we are going to proceed by induction on the number of edges of the graph. Okay. Now, typically, when you see induction, your first question is, what is the base case, right? I want you to not worry about the base case for now. We will look at the base case, don't worry. But I want you to, for now, not worry too much about the base case. Okay, it might make you slightly uncomfortable, but that's okay. There is a purpose behind that. Okay, so let's consider some graph G. So whatever goal is going to be, it's going to be to get a smaller graph using which we can argue about the bigger graph, right? So that is what we'll focus on. We'll focus on the induction step. And at the end, we will discuss what the base case is. Fine. So let us suppose that there exists some edge in the graph so that the graph looks like this. X is a vertex, E is the edge like this, U and V, and Y is a vertex here. So what I'm trying to say is that there exists an edge E such that E is not incident with X and E is not incident with Y. E equal to UV, where U is not equal to V. So this is not a loop. Okay. Supposing there is some edge like this in the graph. Let me ask you a question. What happens if your graph is a loop? Actually, I would like to assume that the graph does not have loops. What if G has a loop? Can somebody complete the proof by induction? Supposing there is a loop in the graph, say F. Can somebody tell me how to finish the proof by induction in just one step? Notice that a loop does not have any effect on paths between X and Y, and it also does not have any effect on cuts between X and Y, cuts separating X and Y. A loop does not make any difference because a loop cannot be a part of a path, right? And you can check easily that loop will not also, it will also not affect cuts. So actually, you can just consider G minus F and proceed by induction, done by induction. You get a smaller graph, the induction hypothesis holds, and you are done. Okay, so we may actually assume, that G is loopless. Okay, so that you don't have to worry about loops at all. Okay, and now I am saying that make one more assumption that there is some edge that is not incident to X and it is not incident to Y. Okay. And what if there is no such edge? We will talk about that later. Okay, so we have a picture that looks like this. In this case, we are going to apply the induction hypothesis in a very interesting way. So let's consider the graph G minus E. This is a smaller graph. X and Y are still in this graph. They are non-adjacent vertices because they were non-adjacent in the original graph. Therefore, H satisfies the induction hypothesis. Note that by induction hypothesis, in the graph H, these two quantities are equal. Okay. Now I want to make some observations. My first question to you is, what is the relation between Pxy in H and Pxy in G?
I think PHXY should be less than or equal to PGXY.
Exactly.
But G is a bigger graph.
That is right. So the number of disjoint paths in the graph H cannot be more than in G because all paths in H also exist in G. So if you got 5 paths in H between X and Y that are pairwise internally disjoint, those 5 paths would also exist in G. So you can conclude that this quantity is less than equal to this quantity. Okay? So that's the first observation. Now I want to compare the other two quantities between these two graphs. So the same question, what is the relationship between the cut value, the cut function in the two graphs between X and Y? Sorry. This is a bit trickier than the previous one. Let's make a drawing. Supposing in the graph H, I can separate X and Y.
Sir, I think it would be CGXY less than or equal to CHXY.
Okay, fine.
Because
let's-
if we can, because if CGXY equal to some value, say K, then we can remove K vertices from G, so that X and Y can be separated in G minus those K vertices.
So what is your
So-
claim again? CGXY?
CGXY, yes,
Yes.
that is less than or equal to CHXY.
I see. This is your claim. Okay, let's look at a
No, no, sir,
possibility.
I think, sir, I just made a mistake. It would be CH would be less than or equal to CG.
Okay, so you want to replace the two. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Exchange the two. CH is less than equal to CG.
Less than or equal to CG, yes, yes.
Okay. So the number of vertices required to separate X and Y in H is at most the number of vertices required to separate X and Y in G. That is correct. I want to make a stronger claim now. Okay, so this is correct. I want to say something stronger than this. So supposing that S is a minimum, let's say this is a minimum XY vertex cut. So I mean of XY vertex cut of minimum size. Okay. What can happen in the original graph G? Well, what is the difference between these two graphs? Only one edge joining U and V. If the edge is here, then clearly this set will be a vertex cut, XY vertex cut in the graph G, right? There is one case where you cannot claim this. What if the edge E looks like this? There is a component containing X, there is a component containing Y after you remove the set S, and now the edge E goes from the first component containing X to the second component containing Y. There could be other components, I'm not worrying about that. In this case, S is no longer a XY vertex cut in the graph G. But you can delete something to get an XY vertex cut. Can you tell me what is that? There is some vertex you can delete to get an XY vertex cut.
Sir, I think it should be then either U or V.
Either U or V, right? If you delete either U or V, you will still be able to separate X and Y. So which means that if the minimum XY vertex cut in H had 4 vertices, the minimum XY vertex cut in G cannot have more than 5 vertices. Because you already see a 5 vertex cut separating X and Y in the graph G. So this is lower bounded by what you said, Aranya, and it is upper bounded by plus
CH
1,
plus 1. CH plus 1.
right?
So basically, sir, the value of CG will be either exactly CH or CH plus 1. There are two possibilities.
Exactly. Okay, so there are exactly 2 possibilities. Is everybody with me on this part? Does everybody see why the quantity CGXY is either going to be CHXY or it is going to be CHXY plus 1? Are there any questions or concerns regarding how we reach this conclusion? Okay. No questions? Everybody is okay? Great. So there are two cases to be considered here, and these are the two cases, right? Okay. So let us suppose that these two quantities were equal. Suppose that, or maybe let me write if. If the number of vertices in the minimum cut in xy in G is the same as that in H, right? And what is this quantity? You might remember we call this quantity equal to K, right? That is our K. CGXY is K. What can you say by induction hypothesis?
We are done, right? Here.
We are done. Exactly. We are done. Why are we done?
PG is greater than equal to PH, which is equal
Right.
to CH from induction hypothesis. And here we claim that CH is equals to CG.
Exactly. By the induction hypothesis, yeah, you're right. By the induction hypothesis, the pH is at least CH, right? You have at least as many paths in the graph H as the size of a minimum cut. That is our hypothesis, right? And that means, so which means that there exists K, this is equal to K, right? There exists K pairwise internally disjoint XY paths in the graph H, but whatever exists in H also exists in G because you just added an edge. You cannot destroy paths by adding an edge. So there exists K pairwise internally disjoint XY paths in G, and that is exactly what we wanted to prove. Remember? This was our goal. Where is the goal? Here. Okay, so in this case we are done. Good. So what does that mean? That means that we only need to look at the second case now. So now, so we may assume, or rather just say now suppose, that CGXY is equal to CHXY plus 1. What does this mean? This means that in the graph G, the minimum XY vertex cut has exactly one more vertex than a minimum XY vertex cut in the graph H, right? So if in H you had to remove 4 vertices, then in G you have to remove 5 vertices. And that is only possible when your graph looks like this, as we have already discussed. This is only possible when you delete a minimum vertex cut, you will get 2 components, one containing X and one containing Y, and the edge E has to go from the first component to the second component. Okay? This implies, okay, so let me put it differently. So that means that CHXY is equal to K minus 1, right? There is a vertex cut separating X and Y with K minus 1 vertices. So let us consider S to be such a vertex cut. V1 to Vk minus 1. Let this be a minimum XY vertex cut in the graph H. Okay? Because this is equal to K minus 1, there has to exist some vertex cut of size K minus 1. That is what it means, right? So let's make a drawing. v1, v2 up to vk minus 1. This is our set S. When you delete the set S in the graph H, by definition of xy vertex cut, you will get at least two components, one containing the vertex x and another component containing the vertex y. There might be other components in the graph. I won't care about them. Okay? They are there, but I'm not going to draw them because they don't affect our proof. Okay? Let us call this component capital X. Let us call this component capital Y. And we know that in the graph G, yeah, go ahead, Ananya.
So there may be components other than x and y. Means basically
That's
you are
right.
showing only the components of small x and small y.
That's right. That's right. I'm not drawing the other components. Yeah. Okay. But there are other components. And if it helps you, for the sake of this discussion, you can try to think that there are no other components. And then you can think later at your home, what do you do when there are other components? But our proof we are going to write down, it does not care about other components. Okay. Okay, so back to where we were. In the graph G, S is not a XY vertex cut, because in the graph G, we know that we need to remove K vertices to disconnect X and Y. That is our quantity K, right? So the only way this is possible is if the edge E goes like this. In all other cases, S will be a XY vertex cut in G, and that will be a contradiction. Note that E has one end in X and other end in Y. Why? Otherwise, S is a XY vertex cut in G, and this is a contradiction because S has only K minus 1 vertices. Okay?
Sir,
Yeah.
is this why we considered x and y are not adjacent? Because if they were, we could have taken the edge as a direct edge from x to y, and we couldn't have removed a.
That is one reason, but there is a more fundamental reason for considering this, because if x and y are adjacent, then one of these two quantities is not even defined. Can you tell me which one it is? Either the P or the C is actually undefined.
C.
C, exactly. So this would not be defined if x and y were adjacent. You can remove all the vertices in the world and they will still be connected, right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So there is a more fundamental reason for that. Yeah. Okay. So does everybody follow the proof till now? If there are any questions right now, ask right now, because now we are going to get into more complicated things. Okay. So since E has one end in capital X and other end in Y, let me adjust notation so that U belongs to X and V belongs to Y. Okay, so this is the end U and this is the end V. Let me make the drawing a bit less cluttered. Okay. Good. So now we need to somehow complete the proof from this point. Okay, so what we are going to do is actually a very nice trick that is often useful in graph theory. So in induction, you want to get a smaller graph to apply the induction hypothesis, right? But getting a smaller graph, you can do it in many different ways. Of course, the standard ways are removing an edge, like we already did in the graph H. Notice that this drawing is now for the graph G. because I put the edge E back in. Okay. So we got the graph H by removing one edge. But we are going to use induction in very interesting ways in this proof. So now what we are going to do is, we are going to get two smaller graphs from this drawing, and we are going to apply the induction hypothesis on those smaller graphs. Okay? But this time we are going to do something more sophisticated than just removing an edge or removing a vertex. Okay? Here is what we are going to do. We are going to take the set Y and make it a single vertex. We'll call this the shrinking operation. Okay? And we will construct another graph by taking X and shrinking it into a single vertex. Okay? So we will identify all the vertices in capital X into one vertex. So let me give you one example. So let's say I have this drawing. So one of our graphs is going to be Y becomes a single vertex, and we will call it small y. So it's what we have done is we have shrunk capital Y into a single vertex small y. Okay, and capital X is as it is, and V1, V2, dot 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 dot, Vk minus 1 is our set S. Okay, this is one graph. We will denote it as G, where you shrink capital Y into a single vertex small y. Okay, so all the edges that were going into some vertex of capital Y will now go into the small vertex, it's a small y vertex. Okay. And similarly, we will construct another graph where we keep Y as it is. Maybe let me put some space here. And we will shrink X into a single vertex. Okay?
Basically, sir, at one time, we are shrinking basically either X or Y and keeping the other as it is.
Exactly, exactly. So this is the graph G, shrink big X to small x. Okay? So I'll just write down in words, G shrink Y is obtained from the graph G by shrinking the set capital Y into a single vertex. Let me give you one concrete example. Supposing this is my, let's say this is my set Y, this is my set X. Let me put an edge here. Sorry, this is not X, this is S. And this is the set X. And there are three edges like this. And this is Y. Something like this, okay? Maybe I'll put more edges if you want to make it interesting. Now, what does it mean to shrink Y? It means that you keep the rest of the graph as it is. So you first draw the rest of the graph as it is. Now you take Y and make a single vertex out of it. And you join all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edges will now go from small y to the set S. So there'll be 3 edges like this, and there'll be 1 edge like this. Okay, this is the graph. We shrink Y to small y. Does everybody follow what the definition is? I'm not going to write down the formal definition.
It may result in a multi-graph.
Yes, it will result in multiple edges. It may, but it won't result in any loops because you already threw away the loops.
Yeah. Because since G was loopless, the shrinking would be loopless.
Yeah. I mean, one could argue that these 3 vertices become 3 loops here, but in our proof, the loops don't matter. So let's just not worry about the loops. Okay. So we will not worry about any edges inside Y because they don't really matter to us. Okay?
So you say even if the graph G has loops, then multigraph cannot create more loops.
You mean shrinking operation cannot create more loops?
Yeah, shrinking operation cannot create more loops because
It
the
depends.
loops.
It depends on how you define the shrinking operation. So in our case, we will not worry about loops. But you see, if you shrink this into a single vertex, it depends on how you define it because you are identifying all three vertices into a single vertex. So these three edges technically could become loops because now they are all going to be incident with the same vertex twice.
Yeah. Then, but the way
Exactly.
you define the shrinking operation,
Yeah,
I think.
it's not going to create loops. Yeah, the way we are defining it, it will not create loops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
So
when
we
you're
shrink
shrinking a
Y
particular set,
and we do
all
not
the
create loops.
outgoing edges from that set.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. So the way we are defining here, we will not create loops, right? But I just wanted to be clear that there is no standard definition of shrinking. This is the definition we are using here. Okay. So we got two smaller graphs. And what we are going to do is we are going to apply the induction hypothesis on these two smaller graphs. Because it's not always easy to write this whole notation, I will also just use G shrink X and I will also just use G shrink Y so that I don't have to write the whole thing in subscript. Okay?
So what about edges from Y to X?
Sorry?
What about edge from Y to X?
Right. You are right. I forgot to draw that one edge. Thank you. So there is an edge E which is going like this. Thank you. Right? And there is X here, and this is the vertex U. And similarly, there is the edge E going from here to V, and Y is here. Okay? That is the only edge between X and Y. You agree? Okay. All right, so how do we apply the induction hypothesis on these two small graphs? This is the plan. To apply the induction hypothesis on G shrink X and G shrink Y. Okay, so let's see. What can we say about the, supposing I give you an XY vertex cut in the graph G shrink X, for example. Okay, supposing you consider any XY vertex cut in this graph. I claim that any such XY vertex cut in this graph will also be an XY vertex cut in the original graph G.
So can you
Think
repeat the
about,
statement again?
yeah. So my claim is the following. Any XY vertex cut in G shrink X is also an XY vertex cut in the original graph G.
Okay.
I want you all to think about this claim for a second. If you take any XY vertex cut in this graph, so what do we mean by XY vertex cut here? We mean a vertex cut that separates this vertex and this vertex. I claim that any such XY vertex cut will also be an XY vertex cut in the original graph G. Because what are you doing in the original graph G? You are blowing up the small little x vertex into the whole set X. Right? this will still make sure that the small x and the small y are not connected in the graph G after removing.
So this is because if S is a xy vertex cut in G shrink x,
Right.
that means there is no path from x to y
Exactly.
G shrink x. Now, if there is no path from x to y in G shrink x, there cannot be no path from x to y in G also.
After exactly. Because what you are doing is you are going to blow this up into a big set X,
Yeah.
and your small x will be inside it. Right?
Yes,
That will
exactly.
not change the connectivity between vertices.
Yes, sir, exactly.
Right? So you need to visualize this operation. How do you go back from this graph to the original graph G? You replace the small vertex X by the big set X, right? But that does not change the fact that X and Y were disconnected after removing these vertices,
Yes, sir.
right? So what that means, what does this imply? So how are these quantities related?
Equal to.
Are they equal to? Can we say they are equal?
Sir, I think they won't be equal. Means I think G shrink x, G shrink x would be it would be sorry means CG would be less than or equal to C of G shrink x.
So one of you is saying equal to, one of you is saying it is less than equal to.
No, sir, not less than or equal to. It
No,
is to greater
no,
than or equal to.
greater than or equal to.
Greater than or equal to.
Any other guesses? Okay, let's think about it. Supposing this quantity was 4, okay, and let's say I was able to get a set of size 3 here. But according to this claim, that vertex cut would also be an XY vertex cut in G. So that would be a contradiction. So it would be at least greater than equal to. Whether it is equal to, I'll let you think about it. But we will only need greater than equal to.
Sir,
Right?
I think it will also be equal to, sir.
Okay, so is it equal to? Think about it. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it myself. Is it an equal to? Let me see. Let me finish the proof and then think about it. Okay? So we'll come back to this. But what is good is that it is at least that much. And by the induction hypothesis, if it is at least k, we know that by the induction hypothesis, the number of xy paths is going to be at least the size of a minimum cut, because the graph G shrink x has fewer edges than the original graph G. Right? Why does it have fewer edges? Can anybody tell me? Why are there fewer edges in G shrink x than the original graph G?
Sir, this is because first of all, X has at least two vertices, and we
Exactly,
know that
that's it. It is connected.
yeah, it is connected
Right?
because in induced subgraph on X, basically X is at least one edge.
Exactly. This, if you look at just x here, both of these parts are connected graphs on at least two vertices, which means there is at least one edge there. So when you shrink, the number of edges necessarily goes down. Okay? Good. So what does this mean? This means that in the graph G shrink x, there exists at least k pairwise internally disjoint paths joining x and y. Okay? And because this is true for G shrink x, it is also true for G shrink y by symmetry. By analogous argument, Same holds for G shrink Y.
So sir, basically here we are applying the induction hypothesis on G string X and G string Y, right?
Exactly, right? So we applied the induction hypothesis on the graph H. Now we are applying the induction hypothesis on the graph G shrink X, G shrink Y, right? So we applied it at least 3 times by now. Good. Okay, so we have at least k paths in both of these graphs joining X and Y. Okay. So what do these paths look like? Supposing I tell you that there are P1, P2 up to Pk paths, XY paths. What can you say about these paths from this drawing? In G shrink Y, we are looking at G shrink Y now. I claim that these paths have to use certain specific vertices. Can someone tell me what these vertices are?
Vertices of S,
Yes, all the vertices of S and
U.
U. All these vertices of S and U, you see they are k vertices and they are the only vertices that can be adjacent to the small vertex Y. Which means if you have pairwise internally disjoint paths, those paths will have to use all the vertices of S and they will also have to use the vertex U. Okay, so let me write it down. Let
I have a
P1,
question.
yeah, go ahead.
So when it is using the vertex U, then the last stage in that path must be the edge U comma Y, right?
That's right. It has to be that edge.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Right, so let's say P1 to Pk are pairwise internally disjoint XY paths in G shrink Y, and let's say Q1 to Qk, they are pairwise internally disjoint XY paths in the graph G shrink X. Okay, so we have a bunch of paths going in both the graphs. Let me make a drawing. So what we will do is, now we will stitch those paths together to make our k paths in the original graph G. So let's say one path starts here, goes to V1, and it has to use the edge to Y. That is the only way you can reach the vertex Y. You go through all its neighbors, and all its potential neighbors are V1 to Vk minus 1 plus the vertex U. So if it is only k neighbors, all the paths have to use those k neighbors. Okay? And similarly, there will be a path here. I will also color it red so that it is clear which paths we are combining. Now there is another path, let's say green, which goes like this and then uses this edge. Then you go like this. Sorry, my bad, that is an edge. This is one edge, and then your path goes like this. Okay? And now you have, let's say, bunch of other paths, and now we'll draw the last path. The last path goes to U, and then it uses the edge E, and here the last path goes to V, and it uses the edge E. And now what I will do is, I will combine these paths. I will combine the red path with the red path, the green with the green, so on up to the blue path, the last path. Okay? So let me draw this again. Okay, so I'll just write down what we are doing. Adjust notation so that Vi belongs to Pi for all I between 1 and k minus 1, and the vertex, what is the vertex? It is U. U belongs to the last path. Okay? And similarly, adjust notation so that Vi belongs to Qi for all I, and the last vertex is V, it belongs to Qk. Okay, and now I will just write down, stitch these paths together. where I will leave it to you how to formalize that. To get K pairwise internally disjoint paths in the graph G, XY paths. Okay, so you just combine these paths together and now you will get your K paths, red, green, and up to the blue path in your original graph G. These paths will use all these vertices, V1, V2, Vk, right? And the last path will use the edge E, which was the edge we removed in order to start our proof, right? So we have constructed K paths between X and Y, and that completes the proof. Okay, there's a lot of details here. So if there are questions, this is a good time to ask. And you probably want to go through this proof multiple times after the lecture to make sure that you follow everything.
So sir, basically, if we take the first half of the path P1 from X
Yeah.
to P1,
Yeah,
and then the second half of the path Q1 from P1
Exactly.
to Y, then that
exactly.
will give me a path. And similarly for P2, Q2 up to P3, Q3. So
Exactly.
those K paths will be internally disjoint, and we're done.
Right, right.
That means that the operation of syncing is actually a main operation here we're doing in the proof.
Yeah, I did not write down the exact definition of the paths, but I think it's doable from the picture, right? Yeah, but stitching is important. Okay. So let's see. So I did not mention about the base case. We are already over time, so I'm sorry. Let me just say one few words about the base case, and I'll finish the lecture. So you might say, well, what is the base case? The base case is when there is no such edge in the graph. Because whenever there is such an edge in the graph, we are able to apply the induction hypothesis. So now the base case is when all the edges are either incident to X or incident with Y. And that I will leave it to you. It's a very easy case. You just draw what a graph like this looks like, and then you prove that it's true for those graphs. Base case is for each edge of the graph G, either E is incident with X or E is incident with Y. Characterize these graphs and observe Menger's theorem to be true. Okay, this is not difficult. You have two vertices and all the edges are either incident at X or at Y. Okay, so that's the base case. And the reason I wanted to not stress on the base case is that it kind of misses the point. The point of this proof is that you're trying to get a smaller graph, and whenever you get a smaller graph, you just apply the induction hypothesis. And whenever you can't do that, that's your base case. So often in graph theoretical proofs, you leave the base case to the end. Even in the thinking, in the way you discover the proof, the base case often comes at the end. Okay, so that's the end of the lecture. Let me stop recording, but I'm here for another 5-10 minutes for questions.
So can you show the last page?